Good evening. Again, recording at
Again.
night. Recording at night. Hi, Michael. How are you going tonight?
I'm excellent, Tash. Really
Excellent.
good. Really good.
Excellent. Have you been busy?
Yes, we've been busy. We
Okay.
have been busy. Busy doing walking,
Okay.
driving.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting how the landscape changes as you drive through the landscape, and
Mm,
sometimes it can be subtle and sometimes it can be really
mm,
obvious,
yeah.
uh, driving into where we are here at Wilpena Pound. We're driving through hundreds, from our last place we drove maybe 200 kilometers, a lot of it on dirt. We
Mm,
started to see creek beds and we started to see quite deepish sort of floodways. Of course, there's no water in most of them because we're in South Australia, the driest state in the driest continent on Earth, right?
wow.
It doesn't rain here very much at all. Not
Mm,
in the northern, the middle of South Australia. It doesn't rain here much at all. Most of it's desert. But as we started to drive further south in towards the Flinders Ranges, we started to see these sand beds, quite deep, you know, 5-10 meters from the plain down into the bottom of the creek and then up again. And you can start to see the change in the vegetation within them, and we're getting into the place now where there's river gums,
mm,
beautiful big gums. And here and then as we came into this Wilpena area, it just there was we actually started to see green,
mm,
which
mm,
green on the ground. Apparently they had a couple of inches of rain here
mm.
a couple of weeks ago. First time it had had any serious rain here for 5 years, according to the local fellow that we were talking to. So it is a dry place. But the interesting thing about the river gums is that even though the creeks don't have any water that we can see, the water's still flow. There's still a little bit of water deep underground, and
Mm.
they send their roots deep into the earth.
Amazing.
Once they're established, they're as deep down as they are up. To get into the water table and survive for years and years and years without rain. And that,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. But as we go from here further south, we'll start to come into something that's a bit more temperate, a
Mm.
bit more. I suppose South Australia is known for its wines.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so we'll get into that more, that climate that's a bit more,
Mm,
I
mm,
suppose, like what some of our friends would call California, where
mm,
it's dry and a little bit cooler, um, or the Italy type
mm. Yeah.
climate,
Like southern Italy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know, here on the east coast of Australia, and I grew up here where we have, they call it a subtropical climate, and we have essentially rain, enough rain. It's green most of the time.
yeah.
Uh, and it really is, as you said, amazing how quickly the landscape changes. Most people in Australia live along the coastline somewhere.
That's right.
And if you're traveling if I'm talking about the east coast of Australia, that includes the coast of Queensland and New South Wales, a little bit of Victoria. If you travel inland, if you're heading west, you typically will climb over a range. And then when you get to the other side of the range, it's desert. It's amazing. And it's in
It's
just such a
different.
short distance, really.
It sure is. It sure is. But 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 there is water. There is so much water here.
Mm,
Just that most people don't know how to find it
yeah, yeah.
or where it is. So a bit of a geology lesson, right?
Mhm.
For us about Australia's divided in a couple of ways. One of them is the Great Dividing Range, which is the range you were talking about just before.
Yeah.
Water that falls on the Great Dividing Range,
The waterfalls.
the water that falls
Oh,
on
yeah. Yeah.
Australia on the Great Dividing Range. It's called the Great Dividing Range because it divides which direction the water goes.
Mm.
Yeah. So on one side, the water goes to the coast. The other side, it comes into the
Mm.
inland. A lot of what comes into the inland goes down into the soil and doesn't end up running through rivers. And it gets into substrate sandstone, and it will run along the sandstone. And there's a huge, huge artesian basin. It's the biggest water water source in the world, which is under about a third of the continent, through Queensland, the Northern Territory, into South Australia and New South Wales. We were at the most southern, probably close to the most southern part of that, the furthest from where the water falls onto the, say if it fell just west of Brisbane or just west of the sunny coast, about 100 kilometers inland, falls there, soaks into the earth. Apparently, the water that comes out of these springs here, just up the road, 100 kilometers or so from where I am now, maybe 200, is up to 2 million years since it fell on the Great Dividing Range, just near Brisbane.
Wow.
Went into the ground about 2 million years ago, and we saw it bubbling out of the earth in the middle of the desert.
Wow. Did you drink it?
No, we didn't drink it. It's quite salty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
Because
want.
because it's been spring, because for one good reason, all of the inland of Australia was an inland sea a long time ago, you know.
Yeah.
So there's all the sedimentation. It was salty.
Yeah.
And what comes out of the earth, in some places it's not so salty, in other places it is. Just depends on the earth that it's coming up through, right? If it's just coming through rock, it's not so salty, but depends on what it's come through, how salty it is. Anyhow, that's that. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Look, and this spring, we were watching it. It was about 30 feet, maybe a pool of about 30 feet round, right? Sit there and watch it, and then all of a sudden, just bubble, 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 water, like it's level water, but water would bubble up and it'd run over the side. You know, it was amazing. And the indigenous people here say you don't go in it,
Mm.
because you go in it, it'll suck you down,
Mm.
and then it spits you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was
Mm.
amazing. Anyhow, and they've been there for tens of thousands of years, these springs, or
Wow.
hundreds of thousands, who knows how long. And
Yeah.
they build little mounds around themselves. So it's like this volcano, except what's coming out isn't lava, but it's water coming out, and it's bringing silt and stuff out of the earth. And they build these little mounds of them around themselves. Anyhow,
Mm. So let's talk about meditation.
why not?
Meditation for busy people. A lot of people I know are busy, and I think our in our culture we've kind of glorified being busy, and we can walk around wearing a badge like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I'm completely guilty of wearing that badge.
Yeah, yeah.
So meditation for busy people. Here's the thing, I think in our culture, celebrating busyness, we have a tendency to push and push and push and achieve and push some more and accumulate and push and in some ways you could say that's just a form of chronic stress, and the body
Mm.
mind system loves stress. It loves doing stuff. It loves being active. It loves being challenged. But the body also loves to rest. It loves to relax. It loves to heal. And
It
sometimes
needs those too, right?
it needs it. Yeah.
Needs
So
them.
yeah, and so we have, as a part of the autonomic nervous system, and most people are familiar with this. It has two divisions. There's the sympathetic nervous system, which we know colloquially as the stress response or the fight, flight, freeze response, and it has with it a purpose and this sort of inbuilt sort of cascade of molecular and chemical things that are happening that have an impact on our minds and our body, including our immunity and our digestion and our capacity for learning and memory and so on.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
physiological response. And sometimes it's really necessary to be, firing and switched on and operating from that operating system, from the from the sympathetic nervous system. Its opposite, and you could say almost antagonistic response is colloquially known as the rest and digest, or the relaxation response, or the parasympathetic nervous system. So they are sort of equal divisions of the autonomic nervous system. The relaxation response also has within it this sort of cascade sequence of reactions and physiological changes that have an impact on the organs of the body, including the brain and the digestion and the organs of immunity. The body loves both. It loves a bit of stress, it loves relaxation. And, I don't want to ever vilify stress, but, you could almost say we have two teams, like in a tug of war. And you could maybe suggest that in our busy modern life of trying to, whatever it is, hit your targets, achieve your goals, live a full, rich life, that we're so caught up in doing and achieving and ultimately putting stress upon ourselves, some of it within our control, some of it not. The two teams are becoming a bit imbalanced because it's not so Instagrammable to show yourself relaxing.
No, no, not
It's
at all.
fairly boring to document in video, but it's extremely important part of. We need, your body has this inbuilt healing mechanism, this very, very powerful inbuilt healing system. And the mind body system wants for you to thrive. It wants for you to, go out and kick some goals and be good at life. But in order to do that well, we need to cooperate with the body. We need to give it relaxation. We need to give it rest. And one of my favorite kind of go-to meditations that I personally love and will often, invite my students is the do nothing technique. The do nothing technique. Are you
That's
familiar with this one?
it's yeah, absolutely. It's one of my go-tos. Like, what could be better than actually taking a few minutes just to do nothing?
Yeah.
Just to do nothing. Now, that doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen, of course.
Mm.
But what if you gave yourself 15 to 20 seconds just to have no agenda at all?
Yeah, to like just not be on
Y-
duty, to go
Yeah,
offline, and to
yeah.
just, switch off, put your out of office sign up, or have your I'm on leave email go out,
Yes,
and
yeah.
just give yourself those 3, 5, 7, 15 minutes of just doing nothing. What an indulgence. Um,
That's a problem
hmm.
because the busyness of life doesn't allow for indulgences.
Well, I want to like counter that. We should be like, in order to perform, if that's what we're trying to do and achieve and produce and contribute and consume, we want to be in peak form. And to do that, I mean, we want, I think every person wants to have a good life. And
Yeah,
having a good life means, being a good person, doing good things, having good relationships. Um, and I'm simplifying it, of course, but in order to have that picture of a life that is fulfilling and rich and meaningful for you, it really is essential. And we do need to switch our attitude collectively and stop like vilifying rest and stop, you know, looking down. Oh, so you had a little nap, huh? Like you're soft, you're weak.
Exactly. Exactly.
But to allow yourself to luxuriate in proper scheduled routine rest and rejuvenation
Yeah. Yeah.
so that you
Absolutely.
can give your best and you can, you know, really thrive in life. Um,
So what does doing nothing look like?
Well, I guess a lot of people may have experienced this if they've been to a yoga class. You know, you might go to a yoga class and, or some of the gyms have classes that are similar to yoga. They might call them something else. And at
Mm.
the end, you have a little lie down. You know, you've done your stretches or you've done your workout, you've done some breathing exercises, and then you just lay down and you do nothing. There might be some nice music and maybe the teacher is talking, but that could be one way that many people have experienced it. But what does it look to do like to do nothing? Um, I guess to have no agenda, but to give
Mm.
yourself permission to switch off, to rest, and to maybe enter that time with the attitude of I'm just gonna like do nothing. I'm gonna hang out with myself for
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
amount of time you've allocated.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
welcome it all. Like you say, there might be actually a lot going on, so that it's not like I'm emptying my mind. I'm going to just say, bring it on, you know, bring it on. Because when we are living busy lives and we do have, you know, a multitude of responsibilities and relationships and worries and fears and hopes and dreams, and, you know, that is a sort of
Mm.
a cumulative part of being a human and living in the world on the path to intimacy. Oftentimes when we stop, when we rest, when we give ourselves permission to do nothing, a lot is going to come up. And so, you know, if we are, and we spoke about it in the last episode, if we allow ourselves to embark upon the journey of meditation with an attitude of bring it on,
Yeah.
embracing it all, welcoming it all, most likely a lot is going to happen and it can feel really busy
Yep.
and it could maybe feel even stressful, maybe. And we'll talk about that.
Mm.
So it's, but if you commit and you persist and you just do nothing anyway, and you hold that attitude of tenderly holding yourself, welcoming it all, allowing your body to rest. It almost kind of sequentially, it goes deeper, it goes deeper, it goes deeper. You're giving your mind body system the time that it needs to go through this process of healing and repair and regenesis. And
Yeah. It seems like there's even sort of a unwinding,
or an
sort of un,
unstressing.
unwinding of tension, releasing of tension. You know,
Mm,
when I think if we look at one of Lorin's um, pictures of what happens in meditation, the 8 R's that we haven't talked about a lot. There's this releasing of tension when you get the do nothing, rest a little bit. There's that releasing of tension in the muscles. You know, things start to let go if you allow, if you give yourself the opportunity to rest.
I think, you know, Michael, I'm a yoga teacher, you're a yoga teacher. It might be possible that there's yoga teachers listening to these conversations or watching it. And you know, in our yoga teacher training, we're taught that the yogis believe we have different bodies, right? They say we
Yeah.
have the different koshas, the different layers. There's the mental body, the emotional body, the physical body of muscle and bone, and
Yeah.
there's all these other bodies, and they sort of go out. And so
Yeah.
the yogis, the ancient yogis, you know, it is said that they believe that we could, through life, we could accumulate tension and sort of stress in each of those bodies: mental tension and stress, emotional
Yeah.
and stress, physical tension and stress. It accumulates through life. And, you know, we can do our yoga practice and we can try to, you know, our physical yoga practice and try to release some of that physical, mental, emotional tension.
Mm.
But I think it's true that as we move through life, we are accumulating stress and tension in the different mind-body parts of the mind-body system. And so it's almost, well, it is paradoxical that when we then come to rest and we go through the process of healing, the process of unstressing, all these little tender points, you know, and sort of wounds and sort of stress points and bruises of our, like our heart, our emotional body, our mental body, our physical body, they start to maybe ache a little bit. The body starts to kind of soothe them and heal them, those little tender wounds. And the process of healing sometimes is uncomfortable.
Yeah, and there's a little discipline. There's only a little discipline in saying, I'm just going to stay the course just through that little ache.
Yeah, you
And
just
and and
sort of
and and
persevering, yeah, in some
yeah,
way.
yeah,
And you could say discipline or persevering, or I'm just going to commit. I'm going to commit and trust the process. I'm going to trust
yeah,
the process and trust my body. And I'm gonna continue to rest. And whatever comes up is coming up. And I'm giving myself this time uh, to allow the healing to occur.
yeah.
And so that I can exit this meditation and be a better person, because I'm more connected, I'm more whole, I'm back, my pieces have been put back in place, and I'm
Yeah, yeah,
not so um, fragmented, you know. And we come back
mm,
to the word that yoga means connection, and we can often start to disconnect from all the little bits of ourselves in life. And you could say through the process of healing, all the little bits that might have become a little loose or disconnected of ourselves start to be healed and fused and reconnect.
woven back together. And this is Tantra, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Tantra is the weaving of life back together, and that's the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is about weaving life together. Yeah,
mm, mm.
yeah,
So it's a really powerful and empowering practice to simply, and I say simply because it is simple, but for many people maybe not easy, but powerful and empowering practice to give yourself permission to rest. Give yourself
absolutely.
permission to rest without judging yourself, without taking on that sort of collective view that we seem to have developed, that if you do rest, if you stop, then you're soft, you're weak.
Mm,
um,
mm. So when's a good time to do that?
Anytime. I think it should be a part of like maintenance,
Mm,
because the body is always looking to achieve balance. And you know that narrative comes through many Eastern practices, that we're trying to achieve balance within the body.
mm,
um so I think, you know, as a part of your self-care, your self-love, your practices, we need to allow time and create time for rest, for relaxation, for healing.
mm,
I don't think, you know, going on a yoga retreat once a year is enough.
mm.
I don't think like going full steam ahead for 9 months and then just collapsing and taking 2 weeks off is enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And even I don't think, you know, that 3 or 4 minute shavasana at the, you know, the little relaxation at the end of your weekly yoga class, for many people, that's probably not enough. I mean, I guess, you know, different people can function on different thresholds of stress. That
Mm,
point probably needs to be made. And maybe with respect to the viewer and the listener, it's really up to you to find the right dosage, the right amount of time and frequency that you need to indulge in and luxuriate, maybe I'll use luxuriate in relaxation, is the right amount for you. How would
Yeah.
you answer the question, Michael? When would you do that? When would you do nothing? When would you give yourself?
As often as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I've got the luxury to take my chair just into the dark there, tilt it back, and look at the stars.
Mm, mm.
And I can do that every night. And look, I don't think there's a person on the planet who's in the Western world at the moment who doesn't spend some time in this thing,
Scrolling, doom
scrolling,
scrolling. Yeah.
or watching the biggest screen, who couldn't make a choice to say, rather than do this for 5 minutes, I'll just put that away and be with myself and do nothing for a few minutes.
Mm,
In
yeah.
the, you know, I don't. I'm sure a lot of people, most people have got the opportunity to save some time here
Yeah, and
and
it's quite ironic. I agree. It's
spend
quite
it in it.
ironic that, that those devices and those those apps and that software has enabled us to connect with more people,
Yeah,
with more ease.
yeah,
But in many ways, it is being used as a tool to disconnect us from ourselves, where
yeah, and
again we find this paradox. It's an amazing tool, but a tool is just a tool,
mhm,
and it can either, like a knife, a knife is a tool.
yeah,
You can, you could use that to save somebody's life, to heal somebody perhaps, or you could use it to cause great harm.
yeah,
It's just a tool, and depending on how it's used, could help you or could harm you. And
yeah,
it's the same with the smartphones, these portable devices.
hmm
Um, Certainly, they've fortified addictive pathways in our brains, and so we need to be more vigilant now of how we are utilizing that tool. Are we using it to
hmm
help ourselves or to harm ourselves? And I agree, like if we could maybe start to use them to set timers, like, okay, you've been on here 12 minutes too long.
yeah,
You use
yeah,
that the next 5 minutes before bed or before work or before the kids get home or whatever it is, to just luxuriate in your own skin, in your own body,
yeah.
and reconnect with
And
yourself.
you can even use the timer on it to say, I'm going to take 10 minutes out.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, 10 minutes out. I'm just going to take
yeah,
10 minutes. I'm going to put it
yeah.
down, and I'm going to take 10 minutes
Mm,
to be with myself now and do nothing. And for me, quite often that would be just staring out the window, watching the clouds go by, right? So it doesn't have to be closing your eyes and coming into anything, just being there with no agenda, like you said, just being with no agenda and just letting the world pass by, let the clouds pass by, let the stars roll across the sky, or maybe it's go and lie in the bath.
And I can kind of hear maybe a listener or viewer going, what a load of BS, like I'm too busy, I've got too much to do, like I don't even have time to meet my friends for coffee or whatever anymore. I have a confession, Michael. I had to learn to relax. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the
Yeah.
skill. It was not natural and normal for me. I think, in our first session, I talked about my default mode is to be a high achiever and to push
Mm.
and push and push. And from a young age, that's how I functioned.
Yeah.
Actually, that really led me to have a very disordered eating problem,
Mhm.
a very disordered relationship with food,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was trying to control and perfect and control and perfect and push and push and push. So that's a whole nother story. But I remember when I first found yoga, or it found me, it was in the year 2000. And I would pack up at the relaxation bit. I was one of those students.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I was like, and I started like tasting little bits of it, but I didn't really get what was the point.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's interesting because I was a dancer for a long time, and was used to kind of performing, and I loved the feeling of yoga and the stretching of yoga. And I think for
Yep.
me, there was these kind of moods of meditation and relaxation in the stretching. But the laying down bit, I was like, this is hilarious. Like, this is for losers. Why would you do this?
Mm-hmm.
So really, I had to learn the skill. And now, I feel it is so sacred. It is so important. It
Yeah.
is so necessary for me to function
Yeah.
and it has to be scheduled for me. I am that kind of
Yeah.
person. I need to schedule it, but I also can now slip into spontaneous relaxation at little micro moments, might be 2 or 3 minutes sitting at the beach, or sitting on the front deck in the dark. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but
It's
I do recognize some of my students, and I teach some big public classes and some small classes, and so I really had to try to train some people to respect and accept the not just the power of relaxation, but to give importance to it and value,
mm,
and that it's a skill that for many people it is the skill is learning to cooperate with your body.
yep.
Learning to cooperate with your body. And for me, that was a mantra for a little while. Like I would have to say I'm cooperating with my body
Mm,
instead of pushing against it. I had to have
yeah.
that kind of attitude as like, and it was slowly for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Another thing I think that is sometimes seen as to a little bit taboo is that if you're taking that time in rest time and you fall asleep, then there's something wrong as well. You
yeah.
know. Now Lorin has said quite often, if you're in meditation and you've fallen asleep, all it means is you're tired and you've got a sleep deficit.
Don't fight it, celebrate it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother conversation. One,
Yeah.
sleep deficit that is a pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then secondly, the taboos of meditation. I would love to continue that conversation because it is so important to address.
Well, I think there's a whole chapter on that, right?
Yeah, so maybe we could wrap this one up by encouraging you, the viewer, the listener, to give yourself time to luxuriate, to indulge in the practice of doing nothing, and to welcome all that comes in the time, in the duration of your meditation inner adventure, but to maybe dive in and just do nothing as often as you can, as Michael would say.
As often as you
Or
can. Well,
scheduled into your daily routine, as Tash would say.
or schedule it in at this time with your timer on.
Yeah.
There's a sutra that we can close with, I think.
Oh, yes. Which one is it?
Sutra 59.
Oh, I love this one.
Sutra 59. Sitting on a soft seat or lying on your mat. Experience the space below as offering no support. You're simply suspended, floating in space. Structures of the mind release. The reservoir of habits dissolves. In an instant, lifetimes of patterns vanish.
Floating in space. Structures of the mind release. The reservoir of habits dissolve. In an instant, lifetimes of patterns vanish. Thank you for sharing that one. Sutra 59. Do nothing.
Rest.
Rest.
Do nothing.
Cooperate with your body.
Yeah, it's a gift to yourself, right?
Mm.
And if you don't give that gift to yourself, then no one else is going to.
Yeah. And that's also the thing in the modern day life. You can't ask your PA to do it for you. You can't like recruit some kind of software or app to do that thing for you. Only you can do it. We have within us this amazing, intelligent, intricate capacity for self-healing. It's there, and the body already knows what to do.
Yeah.
But you have to cooperate with your body. You need to give it time so that it can heal you and kind of get you all pumped and ready to kill it in life.
Be refreshed.
Yeah.
Let yourself be refreshed.
That's a mantra in itself. Be refreshed.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the stars.
You bet.
And I can't wait for the next conversation on the instinctive meditation. I nearly said medication again. The instinctive meditation conversation.
Where we might talk about
Taboos.
Taboos.
The taboos.
And maybe even being a little bit rebellious as well.
Being the rebel. That's one of my favorite topics. Okay. Thank you so much. Good night or good morning, wherever you are.